Hello again and welcome to another tutorial. I'm Damon and we will be learning about blend shapes this time. We'll look at the fundamentals of blend shapes, what are blend shapes, what to do and not to do with them. We'll look at the new shape editor, which is very powerful and a lot of fun to use. I'll show you all kind of techniques and little tricks on how to make symmetrical and unsymmetrical blend shapes, and we'll also look at the pose editor. We'll touch on some sculpting tools, but for now let's just jump in and look at what to do and not to do with a blend shape and how to apply a blend shape. So with that being said, let's get to it. Alright, so let's have a look at how blend shapes work in Maya. So firstly, let's apply a blend shape. To apply a blend shape, it's fairly simple. We duplicate an object. We change its vertice position, basically its shape, like so. We could do whatever we want. And then all we need to do is apply it to the original object. So we want this object to morph into this object. So I'm going to select my morph target first, then the object that we want it to morph into that object, and we'll go to deform, because this is the deformation, and blend shape. Now if we look at our inputs over here in our channel box, we'll see that now we have this node called blend shape, and we have a target added called Geo2, which is the name of the duplicate geometry. So I can now change its shape between 0 and 1. We can even add more than one target. So let me just blow that away. Actually, let's just do a couple of undos until blend shape goes away. And let's duplicate it again. And this time I will just grab the middle one like that. That will be my first shape, my second shape, and then I want everything to blend into here. Again, we're going to go to deform, blend shape, and now you'll see that I have two targets. I got Geo3, Geo2, so I can actually do stuff like have them blend together, have the first one, and then the second one, and so on. So that's how we create blend shapes. Very simple. So our next step is to look what's exactly happening under the hood in Maya to understand how not to break this and what we can and cannot do to our geometry to maintain our shapes. So let's have a look at that. So I'm just going to undo a couple of times and delete these guys. And let's talk about what happens when Maya creates an object. When Maya creates an object, it basically, for each vertice, it numbers it. So, for example, this vertice here will be vertice 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. We'll go all the way around, starting from the plus z to the minus z, and then we'll calculate the positions of these remaining points on the x. Now we can actually display these numbers. It's pretty easy to do. You can go to display, polygon, component IDs, and turn on vertices, and then you'll see that we actually have these numbers. Now why is this important? Well, it's important because when I duplicate the object and change the vertices position like so, when I create a blend shape, what Maya's going to do is take this point here and try and match its position to this point's position. Right? So that's exactly what's happening. So just to illustrate that, I'm going to choose these two, go to deform again and create a blend shape, run the blend shape, and you will see that we have matched the positioning exactly. Now the cool thing is, because the way that Maya is structured, and we have a top node, which is the positioning, and then the shape node, the information of where the vertices are in space comes from the shape node. So I can move these vertices anywhere in the world because it's the position node is doing that, and this object will remain in the same position. Things will change if I freeze transform. I'm not sure that this will break it now, but we can try. Yep, it did. So what happened was it didn't disappear. If I go back to the blend shape, where is the blend shape? There it is. So blend shape, you'll see that now the vertices are trying to match each other. And the reason it's moving from one place to the next is now that this one, vertices are at 0, 0, 0, and this one is trying to match those zeros away of points. So they're moving that to that point. So first rule of thumb, never freeze transformation to an object that has a blend shape on it. Alright? Or you could freeze transformation to the original, but any duplicates that you create should not have a freeze transform. Alright. So I'm going to delete this object, and now I want to delete the blend shape. I can show you how to do it. We could do that all through the node editor or through the channel box by clicking on it, holding down Control, right click, and then go all the way down here and delete the node. So that's gone now. Alright, another thing that we should never do is, let's just duplicate again. So I'm going to duplicate. Oops. Alright, like that. And I'm now going to add some more points. So what will happen is that when I try to apply the blend shape, I'm going to get an error. And the error says, well, I would like to apply the blend shape, but the vertex count does not match. That means that this one has more vertices than this one, and it cannot find those extra vertices. So, all in all, that doesn't help us. We can add them after the fact. So, if I duplicate, move out, and then add that there. Oops, sorry. Let's add the blend shape first. And now add the cut. Because I've added the blend shape first, prior to the cut, if I change the behavior here, and go back to the object, blend shape, and change it, you'll see it will still move. The only difference is that if I move any of these vertices, nothing's going to happen here because there's no matching vertices. And even if I did add vertices, there's no data saying, well, match those. So that won't work. Alright, so I'm just going to undo all of that. One more. Alright. The last thing that we should never do with a blend shape is for our target mesh is to basically change the order of the vertices. And it's very easy to do that. Let's say I deleted half and then went ahead and mirrored it. So we want to border, and instead of the X, let's make that Z. Yep, that should be about right. So as you can see now, if we look at this object, I think this should be broken now. It should be broken. Let's see if I broke it. So I'm just going to grab all of these and do that. And grab that and deform, blend shape. Now this should go all weird. Now the reason it's going all weird is that the positioning of each one of these vertices has changed because I've changed the numbering. So if in the past number 23 was over here, now it's somewhere else and everything is moved over. Alright, so you can see that I have 12, 13, 14, and here is 23, 24, 25. So it's going to look for 23, 24, 25, which should be somewhere else, and then we'll try and match it. So, to conclude all of this, do not change your vertice position. That means if you do want to delete a half and mirror it, do it to the original and then recreate the blend shapes or the target meshes. Do not add any data prior to adding the blend shape, and do not freeze transformation, and you will never ever break your blend shapes. Alright, so that sums up how blend shapes work and how to add them up. Let's have a look at how to actually use them in the workflow. I'll see you in the next segment where that's what we'll do. So we looked at how blend shapes actually work. In this video, we'll start looking at some workflows and the uses of blend shapes. So here we have this character, and it's rigged. So it's got a very simple rig to it, really. Didn't do anything special. It's just a very basic facial rig. There's a jaw control here that I can move up and down. There's a head control left and right, and so on. I'm just going to hide that layer. What I want to do is now go ahead and create some facial expressions. Each facial expression will basically add a little more character to our character. In Maya 2018, we are able to kind of go into a module or a workspace where it allows us to kind of do all our sculpting and blend shapes. You'll find it under the sculpting menu set, which in turn should open the sculpting tool set, give you the tool settings, attribute editor, some brushes here, and the blend shape the shape editor, which used to be the blend shape editor. This just makes it a lot easier for us as artists to kind of work in one space. Alright, so now that we've set everything up for work, let's just talk about the shape editor. So the shape editor, what it does is kind of contains all of our blend shapes in one place and lets us build on top of that blend shape, let's say, many different targets. So what is a target? Basically, every time you duplicate your character and create a blend shape, that's the target. So the character, let's say the one shape that you've created, is going to try and morph into that target. Alright, so in the previous section, we looked basically as duplicate and then apply a blend shape, and then basically you could turn it on and off. Well, in this case, here I have this character. I could go ahead and create a blend shape without duplicating, and we'll create an empty blend shape, like so. So nothing's going to happen, but you can see it's set to 100%, but there's no target, so there's nothing for it to change into. I need to set that target. So to set a target, we have this button called target, and it will create a duplication of that head, which we cannot see. But instead, it's creating what they call a delta, or a target kind of proxy mesh, letting us actually change this mesh and recording those changes, and then making that the target once I turn off this little edit button over here. So as long as this little edit button is red, we can do all of these changes. And to demonstrate that, I'm going to go over here and grab the character's nose like so, and I'm using soft select, so that's holding down B and middle mouse button left and right. You can make the selection bigger, and I'm just going to pull out his nose like this and create a Pinocchio effect. Alright, so now my character's got this big long nose, and I could test it out. I could actually make it go in and out, and if I turn off the edit, it's now locked in place, so it's not going to remember that. Alright, so let's just recap quickly. We created an empty blend shape by selecting the surface I want to work on. Then I created a target. While the edit button was turned red, we went ahead and changed some vertices, and when we turned it off, we're now able to save that. Alright, so that is the basics. Now you can open the shape editor in a few other places. You could click the button on the sculpting shelf. You could click this button over here, or you can go to Window, Animation, because it's an animation tool, and Shape Editor. Alright, I'm going to stop this section here, and in the next section we're going to talk about some of the sculpting tools that we have, and we'll look at some more of the options that we have in our Shape Editor. Alright, so we're back. In the previous part I talked about how to create a target, and now let's look at what else we can do with the different targets, and a little bit, I'm going to talk a little bit about the sculpting tools in Maya. So I'm just going to switch to my pen. I got a Wacom tablet, and I'm using it to kind of navigate and do some changes. Alright, so I have this layer, and basically I do not want this target anymore, so I can right click, I'm going to use the mouse for that, right click and go all the way down here and delete it, or I could have pressed that little trash can over there on the side. I could even get rid of the blend shape itself, like so. Alright, so I'm going to just create a new blend shape for this because I just deleted the old one. Double click it and rename to expression. Okay, so we got face expressions, and I didn't save my blend shape. You got to put underscore with any naming here, otherwise it won't remember whatever you put in. Alright, so I got face expressions. I'm going to create a new target. And now that I've created a new target, all I need to do is start sculpting. So there's several different tools over here that we can sculpt with. So let's have a look at them. First one is just a basic sculpt tool. The way it works, I'm going to just press on that. First you select your mesh that you want to work on, then you select the tool, and this should let you sculpt on it. I think I changed some of the settings, so let me just reset the tool. There we go, I reset the tool, so it should look like this. To reset a tool, just press reset there. It's a good idea to do that before you start working. Now to make the brush smaller, hold down B and then drag left and right. To change the strength of a brush, you hold down M and then drag up and down or left and right. That should change it. Yeah, but I'm actually going to do this manually on the side there. There we go, something like that. Let's get closer and make that smaller. And what we can do is just start pulling out and let's say making the cheek nice and puffy over here, so we can sculpt that in like so. Let me just undo all of that. Alright, so that's the sculpt and some of the settings. Then we have a smooth, we got a relax, we got a grab tool, which we're going to use a lot. We got a pinch tool, we have a freeze tool, and some other tools that I can get into maybe later on. But those are the major ones that we're going to use throughout. Alright, so let's get cracking. So let's make a smile. I usually just start off with one side, so we're going to create sort of a smirk. I'm going to take the grab tool, I'm going to enlarge it a bit, and just start pulling out towards the side up that way. Now as long as this button is red, we can do all of this stuff. We're going to also pull back because it's going against the teeth there. We're going to have all of this go up. Alright, so as you can see, it's kind of curving downward. I want to kind of twist it up, so we can go and turn on twist, and then as I grab it, we can just twist those verts. We can turn that off and just pull that up some more, pull those down, so it's kind of going over the teeth, and we're getting this kind of smirk like so. Now let's grab the sculpt tool. I'm gonna just scale it down. We're gonna puff this up over a bit. We could also use the inflate tool, which is this tool over here. That's gonna allow us to inflate some of the areas, so it feels a little more pinched. We could use the pinch tool as well, just to, you know, because everything is being more compressed, so I'm gonna just compress that in. And you could really take your time with this. Of course, the more time you take with it, the better. Alright, if I hold down shift and just move my brush, it's going to smooth out the vertices, so you can get a smoother feel to it. If we press this button here, this is a relax button. What that will do is kind of try to keep equal distance between all of these shapes here, so you don't get weird stretching. So I tend to use this quite a bit when I'm sculpting, just because this is a natural face, and we just want to kind of mimic skin being pulled over, so we can just do that. And I'm going to pull this down a bit, so we get a little more of a smile, like so. Alright, we're going to do the cheeks separately later, so there we go. So I'm pretty happy with this. I'm going to turn off edit and then turn that just to see the result. I don't like what's going on here, so we're going to turn edit back on. I'm going to take the relax, so that's going to keep the volume I've created but relax those verts. Alright, that way I don't lose the volume. And then we want to just test it out, and there we go. We got a very nice little smirk going on. Alright, so we looked at the sculpting tools, we looked at the workflow. In the next section, we're going to look at how we can duplicate our target to the opposite side, how we can create some more options to our expressions. Alright, so in the previous section we looked at how to sculpt. Now let's look at what we can do with some of our targets. So I have this target over here, and it's just the one side, and I actually want to create a smile. So the one way I can do that is basically by right clicking here and going down, and we can go mirror target, and that will create a smile. But what if I don't want to create like a full smile? I want to have control of each side. So I'm just going to undo that. And what I can do is duplicate the target. I'm going to rename it, so that's going to be right. and get rid of copy over here. And as you can see, it's now overdriving the previous smile. And the reason is that basically these are layered, so it's kind of pushing it further. It's taking this smile and this smile and kind of adding them together. So 1 and 1 makes 2, kind of drives it by twice as much. So I actually want to flip this onto the other side. So what I'm going to do is right click and write flip target. So now it's going to be on the other side. So now what we have is a full smile. So we got that and that. So that's all kind of cool, but it looks a bit weird. And the reason it's looking a bit weird is that although I'm kind of putting the muscle over there on each side, it's not stretching the middle bit quite nicely. And what I want is, as I pull these guys to 100%, I want the entire thing to kind of morph into a third shape, which is like this one plus this one will create a third target. So what I can do is grab these two over here, right click, and go add combined target. And what that will do is create a third type of target, which is going to be right smile, left smile, and it says edit over here. So when this is at 100%, it's going to be equal to whatever I sculpt now. So what I can do is I'm going to use the grab tool again, but this time I'm going to go down. Let's just bring this up so you guys can see. I'm going to go down to symmetry here, put on X on the object, so you can see I'm getting a mirror pull. And what I'm going to do is start just kind of re-sculpting some of this so it feels like it's part of the same thing. So we can push that a bit, pull those out, and we get something a little more like this. So I'm going to turn that off. So this is the result. And so as he smiles, we're getting kind of a pull of each one. So you can see as I pull up the smile, you can see that it's now going to stretch a little more on each side because the muscles are going to be pulling equally. All right. So now we got this kind of creepy smile, but it's still a smile. Now the cool thing is that I could grab my chin control here and open, and we still have a smile. It's a bit weird, but we'll fix that soon enough. All right, so just gonna go back. There we go. Notice that the blend shapes keep on the character no matter what as it's moving. It's just the way that it's set up. All right, next thing that we want to do is let's say I want the ability to turn off and on a full smile, except doing each one separately. So let's say I could do that, I could do that, but I also want the ability to, let's say, have a full smile and kind of control everything in one go. To do that, I could group them into the same group. So if I grab all three of these and then go to this little icon over here with the little folder with the plus, I'm actually going to create a group smile. So I'm going to just grab this name and copy it. Go into group underscore smile, just so we got a naming convention. Actually, I'm just going to do GRP, just so it's shorter. There we go. So now I actually have a control over the entire smile, like so. Cool. Alrighty. So now we saw how to duplicate, flip, create a blend of two blend shapes together, and how to group them together. We'll look at some other options in the next section, which will allow us to do a few more tweaks to our blend shapes and let us do, things like blinks and even control a blend shape as we are moving our jaw, let's say open close, so we get a blend shape happening as that's going on. So I'll see you in the next section. So welcome back. So far we looked at some of the sculpting tools, we looked at some of the basic tools to create blend shapes and targets. And this one I'm going to show you how to create a blinking using targets, and then how we can kind of control its behavior as we go along. So in this case, I got this eyelid here, and what I want to do is just rotate that down and have a kind of cover the cornea here as it's going down, and then basically controlling its behavior. And then we will do the top bit and we'll do the bottom bit, and then we'll basically have control over the entire eye. All right, so how are we going to approach this? Well, firstly we're going to grab the geometry, and actually we don't need to grab the geometry, I just need to grab the blend shape over here and add a target. And this is going to be the left underscore upper lid. Actually we should call it eye lid. Sorry about that. Alright, and enter. So this is going to just be the upper eyelid. So what I'm going to do, it's fairly easy. I'm just going to go to faces. I'm going to select everything on the inside of my eyelid over here, like so. Let's go to wireframe just to see what I'm actually selecting, and I'm going to deselect most of this, somewhat like that. Same over here, I don't need most of that. Alright, so basically what I have is just the inner part of that eyelid. I'm going to press B, and B is going to put me into my soft select. I am on the mirror, so I do have to deselect the other side. There we go. And what I do want to do is go to my rotate. I'm going to go down to my soft select over here and make sure that's, I think if I reset it, it's on volume. We want to have it on surface. And the reason we want it on surface is that we wanted to calculate the surface selection and not the entire volume of the mesh. And I'm just gonna scale this up so it's grabbing most of the lid, and we're just gonna make sure that this area is not gonna be too affected. So maybe there we go, something like that. Okay, so we're gonna go to the side view, and because I want to rotate it more or less from the corner of the eyelid there, now hold down D, grab the arrow, move it down, grab the arrow again, and move it to the corner over there. Alright, so as long as this is on edit, we good. So I'm just gonna rotate that down like so. So now I got more or less the shape I want. Alright, so we can click that off. And this is what we get. It's not perfect in any way, but we're gonna do some sculpting. Alright. So we're going to go back to object mode. So we want the mesh to be green. You could press F8 twice or right click above and just choose object mode. And now what we can do is just grab the move tool. But before that, I kind of don't want to touch anything to do with the bottom eyelid. And probably some of this area here, maybe halfway up it. So what we can do is grab our freeze brush here, And I'll just scale it down. And what this does, everywhere it's going to be blue now, I won't be able to grab its vertices. I'm just going to paint out the areas that I don't want to affect while I sculpt, which is basically everything underneath this eyelid here. I'm just going to paint that out. I could also isolate selection, just make it easier to see what I'm painting. And I want to make sure that I grab everything from the interior as well. There we go, something like so. Just gonna paint it, and then we're gonna unisolate select. So bring back the eyeball. All right, so it looks like he's got a being punched in the eye, but that's kind of what we want. All right, so I'm gonna grab the grab tool. Gonna enlarge it. I'm gonna start kind of sculpting in the shape that I would like, and maybe smoothing out a bit. Just grab the smooth tool and let's make it slightly stronger. So let's kind of smoothen that out. Let's just smooth that a bit like so. There we go. And grab tool. And now we're going to just pull this down because it's squinting in. And just a little bit of... I'm holding down Shift to smooth. We can also hold down Control. It's going to move the vertices and the grab tool along its normal if we do that. Alright, so I'm going to just use the relax again just a little bit. So it's keeping the volume but relaxing the shapes here. Like so. Grab tool. Again, we kind of just want to sculpt this very nicely, very gently into the shape that we would like. Probably want to bring down these guys a bit so they're stretching over the cornea there. Like so. Alright, so we got a very nice little sculpt there. We can test it out. That looks pretty awesome. It's squishing in nicely. Alright. Stop that. Alright. So we now saw that we can freeze that and create a pretty darn nice looking shape. Still not too happy with it. I'm going to pause the video and just get to the shape I like, and then we'll continue from there. Alright, so I have a better shape that I'm happy with. Alright, so since then, all I need to do now is kind of test it out, and I want to make sure that as I'm pulling the eyelid down, some other parts of the eye aren't moving. So I can actually use some more tools. I got this little icon over here or here. So all I could do is just grab the eraser and just erase the top here, and I will basically, anything that I sculpted over here, it's going to stay pretty stiff. So now it's just the eyelid moving like so. Alright, cool. Alright, so that's how we basically use the freeze tool and some other little tricks to kind of do something like the bottom lid. In the next section, we'll talk about creating in-between shapes to control the behavior as we're shutting the eye. So in the previous section, we looked at how to create a fairly simple eyelid movement. We looked at how to use vertices and soft selection to do that. In this section, we're going to talk about in-between shapes. In-between shapes will let us kind of create a in-between sculpt to let the movement look a little more natural and not as mechanical. Alright, so to do that, all we need to do is kind of find the halfway point between here and here, so that should be around about there. And to begin with, I'm just gonna clear out my freeze tool over here. So I'm just gonna go to the freeze tool and just go unfreeze all. And before I do anything, I really want to stress that it's very important to keep things in order. So always name everything and make sure that the red button's on or off when you are actually working on stuff. All right. So here we have our shape, and I'm going to put it about 0.2, and at 0.2 I think this should be my halfway point as the eye is closing. So I could very easily create an in-between shape. All you need to do is right click, and you can now choose add in between target. So all I need to do is I'll open up here the add in between target options, and we'll just go through them and understand what's happening when we create an in-between target. So by default it's set to absolute and use current target shape weight to decide how it's going to behave. So if I click apply, it's going to create an in-between. It's going to set it at 0.2, and now if I just take the grab tool, scale it up, and just pull it out like so, and turn off the edit, as I move my shape it's going to hit that point, and then from there it's going to move down to the final shape. Alright, so that's an absolute in-between shape. So let's delete that one and let's redo it. So let's go 0.3 this time. This time I'm going to say create a relative shape, but use current target weight. So let's go apply, and what it will do, I'm going to close that window. What it will do is set the keyframe at 0.3, and of course we could always change this like later. It's going to set our interpolation type to linear. That means it's going to move linearly. It's going to hit that point and then change. Of course we can also make that different now to like smooth or custom, which I'll show you in a minute. So let's first change the shape and kind of sculpt the shape we want. So as the eyelid is coming down, I kind of want it to roll down kind of thing, like let's say have this go a little lower first. So I'm just gonna stretch this down just a little, just this section here, like so, and turn off the edit. And now let's test it. So what's gonna happen is gonna go down there and then fold over, so we're having a much nicer flow to it. See? I could also change some of the shape here. So let's say as it's pulling down, I could go to the original shape and say, well, you know what? How about I erase all of that, and then let's just smooth, whoops, let's just freeze the bottom part here a bit. Spray paint! Alright, let's just invert that. I don't know if for some reason the control is not working on some of this, and I'm not sure why. Alright, and then let's just invert this to not grab anything from above, like so. Alright, so now I can grab this brush and just keep that shape. Turn that off. So now it's going to do that, which is not ideal. So turn that on. We are going to unfreeze all. And now what I can do, I could actually delete this, but do want to, oops, let's pull these guys back up to where they were before. Let's use this here. So now it will stretch, give that nice feel of stretching of the skin above the eye as we go along. So basically what I've done is kind of create an in-between shape. And we can just smooth that out a bit more. There's a little, just a tad. Go over here, smooth that out. There we go. Smooth, 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 smooth. Means now we go over here, because I smoothed the original shape, that's going to get all messed up. So now what we want to do is just pull that out. So you got to be very careful with these. You could get some weird shapes that aren't exactly intended. Sometimes what I'll do is just delete the shape I made and recreate it. Alright, so let's do that again. Oops. Slide smooth there. There we go. And there we go. So that's adding an in-between. When we come back, we will look at finishing off the eyelid. Basically what I'll do is I'll sculpt the bottom part, have that set up as a group, and then duplicating it onto the other side. And then we'll look at some other options that we can use. So with that being said, we'll see you in the next video. Alright, so I finished creating my open shut eye. I have my top and bottom eyelid open and close. I got a blend between them, and what I wanted to show you that we can actually duplicate everything to the other side very easily. So what I need to do is just grab everything that I want to duplicate, and the first thing I'm going to do is just duplicate targets. It's going to duplicate everything again. I'm just going to turn off any edit that I have. The next stage, just going to drag that out a bit, is everything that says copy on it. I'm going to change the side of it. So this is going to be my right hand side, and get rid of copy 03. This will help us determine which side is what. Now remember, right now it's overdriving everything, so everything looks kind of weird. Don't worry about it. What we care about is just the naming conventions. There we go. This is actually going to be right underscore I blend. copy that name, put this one to this one, and this is going to be left. Alright, so everything's named. Everything we know belongs to what. So everything that's called right. Wait, one more. R. We're going to group into one group. So everything that is called right. Okay, so we're going to put that in a group. Alright, so this is going to be right eye. So it's the right eye, and if I do that, we can see it works. We're going to grab, whoops, all of these, including in between, right click and flip. That should have flipped it to the other side. It did. So now I can just make sure everything's working. Yep. I'm going to close that. Now we're going to choose everything that's left and group it together. And we'll call this I. And there we go. Basically, have a control on the left eye, right eye, and we have a smile. And there we go. So that's basically how you can copy over stuff. You just got to make sure that you select every single element and then copy it. And then what you want to do is just flip, choose all of them and flip them over to the other side. Cool. So that is our open close eyes. The next thing I want to show you after duplication is how we can create PSDs, post deformation shapes, and that we'll see in the next segment. Alright, so the next segment is going to be a little technical, and we're going to have to take a little bit of time with this, so it might be more than 10 minutes, so I do apologize. For this, what we're going to do is we're probably going to have to change our settings here to the rigging, if I'm not wrong. No, pose sculpt. This will set up our pose deformation order and or PSDs. What this will do is basically allow us, if I open the attribute editor, channel box, and here browser scripted, okay, it's the shapes, here channel box, turn on my bones. When I open my character's mouth over here, like so, you'll see that it doesn't deform very nicely. It doesn't get that nice round shape, and the lips don't stretch as the jaw pulls down. What we want to do is basically sort that out. To do that, we just dock this up here. So I've got the outliner as well. Actually, I need the outliner on the other side. So I'm just going to dock it there. Make it smaller. It will allow me. Nope. There we go. Alright. But first thing I need to do, I have, well, it doesn't have animation. Okay. So what I want to do is basically start messing with this. So what do I do? Firstly, I need a driver, and usually the driver was going to be the bone. But in this case, as you can see, the bone is being driven by a controller. Now, usually when you use post deformations, let's say I'm turning the head here, and what I want to do is as I turn the head, I want I want the neck here to flex more. So let's do that first. I'm actually going to bring in my time slider, and I'm going to blow away all the animation here because we don't want that right now. Actually, do I want to blow them away? Alright, so actually I want to keep the animation here. So let's go to frame 5, frame 1. Alright, so I'm just going to click here, and that's going to create an initial state, and an initial state is basically going to be, say when I'm here, if I press on the initial state, it's going to go back to its default position. Alright, so when I'm at this position here, let's say now I want to sculpt, so I could go and add a pose, and it's going to ask some stuff. And let me just reset everything, and it says automatic and blah blah blah. Because I want this to sit, let's just leave it as is and just go apply, and it's going to create this option to do some editing. Now on the side here you can see it says edit. It's basically what it's done. If I go over here, you see it's created a new blend shape, and that blend shape has created a new target, and that's now being attached to this pose over here. So now if I go and do some sculpting on this, so let's say I grab sculpt brush and here, and let's say start sculpting, so let's just pull it out, make that stronger, and then just start sculpting. Let's move this over a bit so it's nice and straight, and let's smooth everything out a bit. So all of that smooths out, and grab brush, and as we pulling the neck, all of this comes out. I'm actually going to use the bulge here, so that's going to bulge this muscle, right, and this muscle, and this muscle here. So let's say that's exactly what I wanted. All happy, all done. So now as we move the neck, it should bulge. Alright, so go there, go to the natural state, and it should have gone back. Alright, so that's the basics of that. So as the neck moves, I think I'm just going to blow away all of the delete, and choose the head there, blow away the head, delete. As the neck turns, it will turn on that blend shape. All right. So I'm just going to blow away this, this one. And what I want to do is work on the jaw. And because the jaw is being driven, as you can see in the channel box, you can see that it's being driven by controller. We actually have to kind of set it a bit differently. So by default, you'll open it like this, and it says, oh, select a bone, and you'll do that, and this dialog box will come up and say, hey, look, this bone is being driven by another object. Do you want to continue it? Say yes, and we'll create all of these guys here for you. What we want to do is just blow them away for now, because before we can add in our default, we actually have to tell Maya to grab this shape node and have that as the driver. So I'm just going to drag up, and you'll see the driver settings. Right now it's set to jaw joint, and I actually want to add the rotations of and the translations of this controller instead of the joint itself. Alright, so to do that, we actually have to kind of grab its translation rotation channels, and we can actually do that from the outliner. And to do that, go to display and you go down to attributes, and you'll see now that we get an extra little round plus button. Now if I just press F, and while I have the controls selected, I could see it here, and I press plus there, and we'll open all of its attributes, and we just want to scroll down until we find the rotation, translation. So it should be, there's the scale, there's the translation, and there's the rotation. Alright, so I'm just going to middle mouse drag all of these in here. So X, Y, and Z, X, Y, Z. Alright, and let's just turn off the attributes and press add, and we can call this CC. Alright, and we're pretty much done. That's been added. Alright, so the next thing I want to do is basically create the default states for that. So we want to go add natural pose, and we'll add those for us. And then what we'll do is just press add pose. So this thing's going to come up, and it's going to say automatic, and so in blend shape node, and we can give this a name. So this one, let's say mouth underscore open, and create, and it's created a editable shape. So if I now move this down to here, alright, and then press that, it'll open, press that, it's not going to work, that means I didn't do this right, so I'm just going to delete that. Yes. Alright, we're going to open it up to there. For some reason there's still keyframes on this, I'm going to just blow those away. Now we're just going to add that pose, create. Alright, so now I test it out, it does that, that does that, we'll bounce between the two. So now I can go sculpt, so we're going to just do that. On symmetry, we want to turn on the symmetry. We do want to grab this geometry, and now all I need to do is start sculpting the actual shapes I want. So it's pretty darn cool. So it looks like it's not sculpting 100%. So sometimes what you need to do, and that's probably because it's not exactly in the center, what you could do is go topology, and all you need to do is select a curve. So now if I go grab tool, it should work exactly the same, like so. Alright, and grab, and as it's opening I actually want it a little like that. So we want to sculpt it. Done. So now if I grab my control and rotate, you'll see that it's gonna change into that shape. Now the cool thing is, if I go over here, and let's just close all of this, like so. If I go smile, smile's gonna pull up that way, and I can move this above these guys like so. Again, that means now I should be able to, let's say, not so much smile, but we can control the amount of smile like that. So that's basically it. Usually what you do is you build these corrective shapes before you do your smile, mainly because you want this to be above it in the hierarchy. So let's say if I now turn off my smile, still there. There you go. Alright, so that basically wraps up this tutorial about using the new shape editor, pose editor, some sculpting tools, and some workflows. And with that being said, I'm going to wrap up this video. I hope this was helpful for you all. See you in the next one.